Hello and welcome to the Swim Brief. The man that needs no introduction, and I'm still going to give him a really long introduction just for fun. Garrett McCaffrey. He is the, would it be fair to call you the supreme overlord of SwimSwam? Like if people have complaints about what's going on over at SwimSwam, they should send those directly to you, right? Don't contact anybody else because you make all the big decisions.
Yeah. I mean, even while we are doing this podcast, I'm simultaneously monitoring comments to make sure that they're fair and balanced. Yeah. So, yep, that all falls on me.
Yep. At least that's what I do. When I have a complaint about SwimSwam, I bring it directly to you because Braden and Mel and I aren't really talking to each other at the moment, although I don't really know. I don't know. Maybe we are. Maybe it's me. Could just be me. You know,
it's a busy time. Usually it is just you, Chris.
No, I've not tried to talk to them. That's the thing. So it's like, is it really like you're not talking? Like, is it really that dramatic when you don't even try? I don't know. So
yeah, it sounds like you need to talk to them and reach out and let them know that, you know, like you miss them because they're not reaching out doesn't mean that they don't like you, Chris. Doesn't mean that.
Okay. Somehow this turned into a therapy session. And you've got a new job. You're wearing a new shirt. You're assistant swim coach at Seattle U.
Yep. That just started pretty much yesterday. Yesterday was my first day. I guess I don't want to date the podcast, but yeah, excited. Chance to step onto a college deck for the first time. And it was a big opportunity for my family to move closer to more family. My wife and I both grew up swimming here in the Seattle area. So a chance to get back towards my parents, her parents, and more importantly, the grandparents for our two boys as well. So it's been a cool, transition, and it's nice to finally be here. And yeah, like I said, second day, I had my second morning practice at Seattle U. So starting to get to know the team and some of the swimmers and Craig, obviously. So yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, I feel like we've been on parallel tracks here, like, you know, with moving and all that kind of stuff. So I'm glad to see that you're settling in up in your old home, your old stomping grounds. I think a lot of people are excited to see what happens at Seattle U. I'm certainly one of them, way more interested than I was a few weeks ago. So and nobody at Seattle U take that in the wrong way. It's just, you know, like when you have somebody that you know that gets involved in something, obviously it takes on a greater importance in your life. So congratulations, and I'm excited to follow.
Thanks, bud. I appreciate it. We're kind of parallel tracks in like a lot of things in life. I think that's why we've stayed such good friends throughout things. But
if you have a third kid, you're out though. I'm not friends with you anymore. So.
Oh man, world is built for families of four. Let's not get sidetracked with kid talk though. But we're on the same page.
Yes.
But yeah, I think it'll be exciting to see, you know, how it goes. And I think we're on kind of different paths though. You did your college stint a little while ago, not that you can't get back into it. And then your track took you on a big time path around all the way to, right? So similar paths and similar life moments for sure. But you definitely have had your unique path. And you know what it's like to be a college coach. That was like all you wanted to do at first when you were coming out of college, right?
I was so snobby about it. I remember you telling me like, hey, don't say that stuff. Like, stop talking. I distinctly remember a conversation where you were like, maybe tone that down a little bit, because you're like, the way you're talking about it is kind of insulting to people like who, you know, coach in a club or are an age group coach or whatever. Like, it's one of my memories of the early times hanging out together. And I think about it now that I'm slowly morphing into a cranky club swimming coach who just sort of walks around with a big chip on my shoulder, thinking about how nobody gives me any respect. So,
no credit. I mean, that's what I'm excited about, is if you can send me kids and I can take credit for them. That's what I want, coaches. Just send your kids my way so that I can take credit for them, because that's what college coaches do, right? We just
or maybe
we
you
just
can take
poop
credit
all over club coaches and take credit for their successes, you know?
Yeah, you could maybe, what's even better is like in an Olympic year, what you could do is you could take credit for them before they even start swimming for you. Like have them counted as people that go to your school before they've swum one lap for your school. Okay, sorry, we're getting off here. Okay, let's. I brought you on here not to talk about Seattle U, not to talk about Jersey Wahoos and my own career. I want to talk Olympics. We had a chance very briefly. We've actually saved a ton for the podcast because we only had a couple conversations through the Olympics because you were moving and you were driving and you were in the middle of Nevada, rural Nevada, and the phone kept cutting out. So a lot of this is fresh. We got it saved to talk on here. And the first thing I want to do is just do like sort of a big picture Olympic look. And I have some big picture stuff that sort of immediate reaction to what happened. None of it, I think, is probably stuff that a lot of other people are thinking as they've watched this, but just sort of collecting some of my initial reaction and thoughts to what happened. And then I'm curious to see what you think in response to some of this. I thought, well, let's just take these one at a time. One at a time, then you can respond. I thought it was the most entertaining Olympics finals I've ever watched. And I've been watching since, I mentioned this on a podcast way back. I think the first one that I can honestly say I really tried to watch was 96. And I barely kind of remember watching that, in my early teens. So, from 2000, 2004, 2008, all the way up through this one, I had more fun watching this one because the races were incredibly, I'm guessing, the races to me were incredibly competitive. A lot more of the outcomes seemed like they were unsure, like what's going to happen, and yet, it's not like the competitive level came down. The competitive level was still super, super high. To the extent that even, maybe in a less competitive Olympics, you would have seen somebody like McKeon, just win like 6 gold medals, right? And that would have been like one of those iconic Olympic performances. And in that vein, it was still super, super exciting to watch. What did you think as you were watching these finals?
Yeah, it just felt like there were so many successes. The Australian women looked amazing. Their men, won some, at least the 200 breaststroke, and won some other things and were competitive in different areas. Obviously, Chalmers is fun to watch at all times. I could get distracted on just the Australian men, but you had the British men from, the guys from Great Britain having the unbelievable greatest meet for their country. You can't say South Africa didn't have a good meet because they had an Olympic champion and a world record set. Yeah. And United States, even despite all of that, still had an amazing meet and still had some what the heck Bobby Fink moments that weren't as predictable and therefore as marketable as the consistent Michael Phelps moments that we've become used to. And I think we all get shaken when the new Michael Phelps, Katie Ledecky, loses her first race by getting a silver and going the second fastest time she's ever gone. But I think that's the other success that really came from these Olympics too. It kind of normalized a lot of, I think, what hopefully people in our sport and people who are into results, and I don't want it to become a therapy session. I've already tried that once in this podcast, but taking away the results driven mentality where if you're not first, you're last, you know what I mean? And having Lily King say that, like, we should celebrate silvers and bronzes the same way. And everybody, had talked about a stigma with the sad silver, because they were that close to the gold. And I get that. And I understand that mentality. And I've been programs where that competition is everything. And I've coached with great coaches who have really made their whole career. Like Pete Carroll, who's supposed to be the best, players coach ever his whole driving thing is compete. It's all about competition. And I think that this Olympics kind of took a little bit of that stigma of if you're not first, you're last away for a lot of different reasons. So I loved it. I thought the competition was great. I thought there were surprises. Oh, Tunisia had a great meet, right? I mean, that's one. So like there were so many successes throughout it that I think it made for some really good entertainment. And we could get into like morning finals for them and what it cost some of the athletes, but not having the results already out like we did for gymnastics, I think really made a difference for the excitement and the time of day that we got to enjoy the finals in the Olympics. I felt like most people were sitting around their TV, especially people like us, but I think general sports fans for the only time in these, Olympic cycles were sitting around watching it because it's the best sports on TV right now.
Yeah. Makes me really curious. I mean, what they're going to do in Paris upcoming, because, now we've sort of unlocked you mentioned the morning finals. I'm curious for you to elaborate on that a little bit, but I think now that we've unlocked the box of like swimming finals will be timed around U.S. viewing schedule. And this was like, as an East Coast person, this was basically ideal for me, because sometimes what I don't like is as a dad with young children, when that sport event is going to be 3 hours long and it starts at 9:30, like that's just a recipe for me getting no sleep all week. But these are like an hour and 15 minutes. Basically, you could watch the whole finals, just sit down, enjoy like a ton of action, good swimming, and then on to the next day. But what do you think when you say something was left on the table in terms of morning finals? What's your perspective there?
And maybe it just took a little while to get into it, but I felt like those 400 IMs on day one were a little bit slower than what we were expecting and what we really saw the rest of the week. It got better and faster as the week went on. But that first morning final, when you don't have fans, and that's another variable that was really different for these guys and girls throughout this whole meet. And then the fact that their family wasn't able to travel and basically ride the coattails of being with the Olympians and all that cool piece that made the Olympics for anybody who had been there before. That was all part of the big show thing. So there were a lot of different things that could have been attributing to slower times in different places. But I do think that swimming fast in the morning takes some getting used to. That whole system of like, waking up and getting right into finals versus, I think there's been a lot of studies, and whether it's just because it's finals or because you've been awake for longer, that you're sharper and more, athletically able in the evenings and the longer you've been awake. So, but man, the benefit has made them superstars here. And obviously the gymnastics are getting a lot of headlines as well, but I would wake up every morning, and whether I wanted it or not, Apple phone was telling me what Simone Biles had done, whereas I could, and I'm the same as you. Like I have to, at the 6:30 swimming started, I'm usually right in the heart of trying to get them to bed, or they don't want to watch swimming yet. So I was DVRing it. I was recording it and watching it without the commercials and stuff after. And I loved it. I loved every second of it. I was on the road for one of them, and I listened to Brett Hawk's live podcast for that 800 free final with Bobby Fink, the 100 fly. Yeah. And I think Michael Andrews. No, that was the next night after Michael Andrews 200 IM. But anyway, there were some good ways to kind of get through it. And I just feel like everybody who was like us was just enjoying the meet for all of, all the different reasons. We've been so hungry for it. There were so many surprises. There were so many great athletes who showed up and impressed in a lot of different ways. So yeah, I think that the finals being live for the American audience, as a spoiled American, I absolutely loved it. And I think that the athletes can adapt. Whether it's still the fairest way to do it, I don't know, but I think the athletes showed that they could adapt to it.
Yeah. Logistically, it's going to be really hard if I just look ahead to Paris and peak a little bit, which, it feels too soon to be talking about Paris, but whatever. Because we're talking about a 6-hour time. You don't have that like 12 to 13 hour time break. I think we had a 13-hour time difference this time around. You've got a 6-hour from the East Coast in the US. So, if you were trying to do things at the exact same time, you're talking like
midday.
I always mess up
No.
which is they're ahead. So it would be 3:30 in the morning. When
For them.
So that's
For
not
the prime time.
Yeah, that's not happening. So we'll have to figure that one out, because I'm spoiled like you, and I would like to continue to be spoiled. I will accept no downgrades. I don't like having to avoid seeing what happened. You know what I mean? I like to just watch what happened. It's such a luxury. And of course it adds to the drama and tension, not knowing ahead of time.
And I like to go on the social medias and find out what other people think about what happened too, like in that moment, right. as it's happening as well. So yeah, you're right. We're spoiled, but it worked. It worked. We loved it. There were so many good races. It worked.
Yeah. All right. So I want to talk now about some races that, I want to cover some ground that maybe is not getting covered as much in other places. Talk about some races that I think flew under the radar a little bit. I know you've got some as well. And we're just going to respond back and forth on those. First up for me, and you referenced her earlier, Lily King. I think a couple times when you and I have been together on a podcast, we end up praising Lily King. And I think if you just listen, you might think like, oh man, these guys are such Lily King homers. Personally, I know like I'm very up and down on my Lily King fandom. I have moments where I'm like, ugh, like, not again, not with this stuff. And then I have moments where like, I think, wow, she's just so awesome. She's great. Such a fresh breath of fresh air. But I thought the 200 breast to me was awesome because I think it's again, I'm in that developmental coach mindset. And I love the idea of you go to the meet, you have your big race that, you've put everything, your whole ego into, like I'm the defending champion and I want to win. And it doesn't go the way you wanted it to go. And she found a way over the course of the meet to come back and contend in a way that I don't think a lot of people expected her to in the 200, and do it with just this really, really bold strategy. She just went out there and as opposed to the sort of pointless going out there that Chad Leclos did in the 200 fly, like this actually panned out to not only a great result for her, but just probably helped to push Schoonmaker to break the world record, having somebody to chase out there. So overall, like I just thought Lily King in the 200 breast was awesome. Yeah.
No, I mean, and you have to give her credit. I know that the 200 has been something she said that she was working on. She sees the writing on the wall in the ISL that if she can get that 200, she becomes a lot more, valuable and makes a lot more money. Right. I just remember watching the ISL and she had talked about the 200 being a priority. And the way that she handled, you're right. Like I go back and forth. Really, I spend more of the time back in the not a Lily King fan area.
Okay.
I think she, when she was on top, could have been more gracious. I know that she's her own person, and we talked about it, and then maybe there is a stigma because she's not a male, and if a male would have had the same attitude, we might, just call it like, oh man, that's confidence. That's right. How you become great. But I think like the contrast, having the 100 back men's final and the 100 breast women's final on the same day, and having Aaron Pearsall write that letter to Ryan Murphy talking about how the goal is to win and have your competitors be happy for you. And then watch Lily King, who was so happy for Lydia Jacoby and couldn't have been more like supportive in that moment. I thought to the point of maybe even trying to get a little bit of the attention and like take out of like make it her moment. She was
lurking on the interview.
I don't know if that was an NBC request or not, but right. She was like, oh, who, me? Oh, okay. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, and not only that, but like going, and she's congratulating, this young swimmer who really has shown no interest in Lily King, apparently has not been fazed by Lily King.
Right.
And like to come over and raise her hand was nice and it was gracious now, but like, remember her in trials in 2016? She's like, well, I work harder than everybody, so this is no surprise that I beat everybody.
Right.
And that was her quote. And again, you can't tell everything about an athlete from that, but I've known athletes who compete with her and have said she's just, not like the most gracious or friendly in those situations. And you get to do what you want with your greatness. So
right.
I'm not telling her how she should be, but, to now come all the way around to, having quotes from this Olympics saying like, we should celebrate the bronze medals and stuff like that. It's almost like Ricky Bobby growing up from, if you're not first, you're last. Yes. Well, I'm like, well, what happens if I'm not first? Got to figure it out,
Right.
So I also feel like she gets depicted in a bad light by NBC as kind of lynched on to that like gruffness and that, like we compared her to Larry Bird, I think on one podcast, like yes. for her trash talk, whatever, but they really took that weapon away from her when they pointed out what she does and then put the cam on her constantly. So every right. time she smacked her leg, we were like, no, it doesn't look like it's working. Well, that looks forced, right. It just, they didn't really, they took her power away from her by telling right. everybody about it. So, right. I think she's a fascinating character and I'm so glad that she was around for another round so we could really either love her or hate her. And I did by the end love her for coming around and like not only winning a 200, but also having that cool attitude of we should celebrate bronzes as well, because I think it's important for little girls who looked up to her for her competitiveness to hear that, and little boys too, to hear that from somebody who's the world record holder. And right. I don't want to transition, it's your podcast, but let's talk about that success in the 200 possibly costing her in the 100. And we could do the same on a more exaggerated scale for Ledecky's disappointing finish in the 200 and being able to win the gold in the 1500, which is way over here. So yep. Dramatic effect included, but you know what I mean? Like there are some choices that have to be made when you really do commit to the 200, and her confidence and ability to hold on in the 200 enough to not look like Chad Leclos was important. Did it cost her being able to go her best? Sorry, Chad. Her best time.
We're just throwing daggers.
In the 100, but it's true. Everybody knows exactly what you're talking about. So in the 100 breaststroke, where as Rowdy would point out, she's the world record holder. So
that was so good.
Thanks. But she is, and she wasn't able to go close to that time. And is that because of the 200 training? I don't know. There's a million other variables it could be, but
I think you're onto something there, and I think something that I've always believed, but it took a little bit longer than I thought it was going to take, is that you're seeing people become like more specialized. I think it's going to become, it's already becoming harder to be like a 6-time gold medalist or 7-time gold medalist. That stretching across all those events, when you have people that are really, really great that are like, well, I'm just going to focus on 1 or 2 races. Like,
how about Phelps jumping on Dressel for not doing the 200 freestyle? As Rowdy would say, he's the favorite in the 50. You know what I mean?
Like, these are so much better than but in the lead up, I was doing impersonations of foreign countries, Rowdy Gaines, where they have the Italian guy going, he's looking at the wrong lane. He's breathing on the left side. But yours are better because I almost feel like I'm talking to Rowdy Gaines when you do those. And plus they're not racist caricatures of foreign cultures. So it's just making fun of a single person, like
I'm doing it for you because you caught me when we were talking the other day and I was trying to defend Michael Andrews' spot on the medley relay. And you're like, you can't do it. And I'm like, he's the American record holder. And you're like, whoa, dude. Whoa. You just almost went full Rowdy on me. Yeah, Next thing I know, you're going to start talking about reaction time. Yeah. And that put it in perspective for me. Because good friends don't let good friends go full Rowdy. So
Next thing you know, you're going to be texting me. You're going to be like, oh, he was 0.60 on that start, 0.63 in the prelims. Those hundreds make a huge difference.
Not the best on the start, but Rowdy, how about at the 15?
Yeah, right.
Anyway.
Okay.
We're digressing.
We got it.
Anyway.
We got it out of our system.
That stretch is interesting. I think we were talking, I was just trying to like point out everybody got all over Dressel for not doing the 200 in the relay, but that's even a tough distance, 200 down to a 50. So there are a lot of examples of it.
I think, and I'm going to talk more sort of looking forward stuff, but I agree with you on that. I almost think like if I was, sort of helping Dressel to decide what to do looking forward, I would actually be paring back the event schedule. Because I actually think as you get older, there's a path forward, but you can't keep swimming the massive, like all programs. I think it would have really hurt him to swim on that 4x200. And that's coming from somebody who, like, day of, I was like, you got to put him on there. Like, you got to beat these British guys. Like, we got to do it. And
Chalmers is doing it.
Yeah, come on. Kyle Chalmers is doing it. Like, and that, I think it was foolish. I think it's really tough. It's interesting. Like, even if you look back at Ryan Lochte, some of the Lochte Phelps stuff, if you look back to like 2012 and that kind of era, like, did Lochte try to race too many events? Do you know what I mean? Would he have been more successful if he wasn't trying to replicate, a Phelps-like program and sort of stuck to what he was best at? I don't know. Those are just questions for doing. All right, let's get to another one.
Okay.
I loved everybody who medaled in the 200 breast. You talked about Stubblety Cook, referenced him as just an outstanding performer for the Australians. I referenced him in the lead up to the games because I really wanted somebody to beat Chupkov, because I always had a strong dislike for Chupkov ever since watching him race as a junior. And he provided a perfect villainous swim up at the top of the pool, because even when he was way, way out of it, I thought, no, he's going to come. He's going to come back on all these guys. And he just couldn't quite come back. Yeah, it was just...
You knew it was coming.
I was talking to Paul, and he was saying he's watching it, and it was like, oh, look, he's so far behind these guys. Oh, but he's right on his world record line. So, like, he's supposed to, if he swims it the same way he swum it before, like, he's just going to blow past these guys on the last 50. That didn't quite happen. So Stubblety Cook, I was really excited about Maddie Matson, as somebody who coached up in the Nordics. There's guys in these small countries and women in these small countries that, have these long careers where they're the best in their country, or they're even the best in their region. And Maddie Matson is a guy who was, like, in the Nordic countries, he was the best. Well, I guess Eric Persson was pretty good in the 2 breast too, but like Maddie Matson, sort of the guy in the 200 breast. And I would say, I remember watching him 6-7 years ago, and the guy was like such a good racer, such a good competitor, always looked like he was like just a tad not in the best shape. And he showed up to this meet. He was in great shape. He executed the race like he'd done 100 other times before, and he had the fitness to finish it. And like, great little accomplishment for a country. Every time they did one of these announcements in the course of the meet, where they're like, that's the first medalist for them since, I think Finland, it was like, first medalist since 1992 or something, or 96. So really awesome stuff to have somebody break through there. Kuminga was awesome in the meet, and might be, might make things really interesting for Adam Peaty going forward, just the way he swum. So there's a lot. The 200 breast was rich. I know I'm a biased breaststroker who's picking the breaststroke races here first, but I thought, especially the men's, was rich with a lot of stuff going on.
And Fink was right in there, as the American,
great.
As well. Like, he was right in the mix for that. So
yeah.
It was exciting. And I think anytime you have a finisher like Chupkov, they're just kind of lurking, that there's a reason to keep watching. There's a reason, like, that's not enough. Maybe that's enough. No, I don't know if that's enough. And And then all of a sudden there were a bunch of people charging. And can you imagine being in that race and being out in front and like having to worry about which way it's going to come from? And if somebody does go, like, it'd be tough to even know which one to pay attention to it. And obviously you're trying to stay in your lane, but yeah, it was a fun finish. You know, that was, both of the 200 breaststrokes were great races.
All right. 50 free silver for Sarah Schustrom. You know, obviously, I don't know if it's even fair to say this one was under the radar. She's a very famous female swimmer that gets a lot of attention. Obviously, a lot of attention paid to the fact that she broke her elbow just a few months ago. But I thought, you know, the reason this was significant to me was she swam really well in the meet, but she would have come away here without a medal. And whether we like that focus or not, we've already sort of commented that on the podcast, you know, it does color people's recollection of it. So I was really happy to see her get on the board because, like I said, I think she swam really, really well. It was an amazing accomplishment to get back here in such good condition for this meet, in such good racing form. And, you know, if not for the absolute buzzsaw that McKeon was at this meet, she would have won. And I'm saying this too, as like she beat out Pernilla Blume. I don't like to watch a Swedish person beat a Danish person at the Olympics, but if it had to be a Swedish person, I would want it to be Sarah Schustrom. I just can't. I mean, I can't not like watching her swim. I just love it. Yeah,
it was probably an interesting games for her because she almost, because of that injury, comes in with no pressure. Where if she would have walked away with just a silver without that injury, we would have been like, ooh, you know, really missed it. But now, like when we saw her in the 100 fly, like pop a 55 and like be shot, or 56 low in prelims, I think. And she was like, what? Like her face was so happy about it. Yeah. It was kind of cool. And for her to be able to get that again, being the world record holder and Olympic champion already, and the hope, like it's pretty rare to be able to go into an Olympics and not have that pressure on her. And hopefully she was able to learn some stuff and take some time to enjoy her accomplishments versus just feeling the pressure that we saw get to so many of the Olympians who have been there before. And if you notice, a lot of the ones who really like seemed the most emotional weren't the first time Olympians who were just like, what? Right. Like, this is fun to be here. But I think the people who had been there before, it was very different. And because they didn't have necessarily the family or friends or support group other than just the team, they felt that pressure of the Olympics and like the moment, because it had been 5 years instead of 4, like that moment got to some more people, Simone Biles obviously being the biggest one. But I think we might have seen a little bit of that from Simone Manuel in Olympic trials before, like leading up and knowing how big these moments are and stuff like that too. So I don't know. There's a lot of different.
I think you're onto something. I mean, if you think about everything we said at the beginning, how competitive this meet is, and then think about what does it take to maintain yourself at that competitive level. It's crazy hard. And so I could see it even in that 50 free with Blume. And I know this from reading some of the Danish media reports, like she had a balance of like, okay, I'm a little bit disappointed that I didn't win. On the other hand, I know how hard it was. Like she almost quit in the lead up to 2016. So then to do another 5 years of everything she needed to do to be in contention one more time, and to realize like, oh, well, 2 people in the whole world beat you on this particular day. You know, I think she did have a little bit of an emotional recognition of that. And you could see it from Ledecky when she won the 1500, you know, she had this sort of release of like, God, I've been doing all this stuff to get ready for this. And, you know, I'm listening to people say like, oh, what is wrong? She lost the 400. And like, just to get in here and kick some ass, like, you could tell she didn't take it for granted.
Yeah,
where she was.
Dressel after winning the 100 freestyle seemed to have that same release, and I think
Yeah.
Pernelli Bloom. Am I
Yeah,
saying that
Bluma.
correctly?
It's
Bluma.
every vowel is like its own sound in Danish.
Well, Florence girlfriend did did
Oh,
particularly. Sorry, that's not
yeah.
good. You
Don't
know
worry.
who
That was
I'm
a big
talking
news
about.
story in Denmark too. Was the canoodling between Florent and Pernilla after they won their medals? Like,
She's much more than just his girlfriend. I'm sorry.
that's right.
She's a two-time
He's
now Olympic
really
medalist. My only point was just going to be that I think she has better appreciation after maybe being a little humbled during ISL because her stroke is so much better in the big pool than the small
yeah.
pool. Like it's hard to be that great and hard to reach that level of greatness, and like to see her come back from, I mean, I just really got to see her race and had some high expectations because of the name recognition in the ISL. And it was like, ooh,
Yeah.
that's not great, but it's because she's better long course.
Yeah.
And
She doesn't have a
so,
great start. She's worked really hard. Like she used to have an absolutely like untenable start for a world-class 50 freestyler. And she got herself to like average start. And that's how she won an Olympic final, because once the swimming starts, she actually gets to a higher speed than everybody else, but she spends a whole 50 trying to catch up. And she just could not catch McKeon, who
yeah,
was off the blocks and then swimming great from that point as well. I don't know what her reaction time is. We'll have to look back at that and compare.
that's
Obviously
where the race was won.
that's where the race was won.
Yeah.
Okay. One more. No, sorry, two more for me. Maggie McNeil's 100 fly. I just think like once the whole meet was over, this is a race where we're going to look back and go, this was like maybe the most insanely competitive race of the whole meet.
Yeah.
And Maggie McNeil won it. She had so many people in there. You had Tori Husk still like went 55-7 and no medal in that race. As you mentioned, Schustrom was maybe not at her absolute best, but she's pretty darn close in there.
And nobody was sure of that after prelims and semis.
No.
She had shown enough to be very dangerous going into that race.
Yeah. And it just, so I think it just incredible to see her be so successful and to take that race.
Will you tell everybody the backstory that you told me about Maggie McNeil? Because that's possibly the most mind-blowing story that you haven't heard yet.
Right. So this blew up. This is like as a news story that's penetrating the censorship in China. For people who sort of follow history or world news or whatever, very famously for a long time, China had a one-child policy. Really, I don't think I'm, I guess I'm going to get myself in trouble with the Chinese Communist Party, but really awful policy. It meant that there were forced sterilizations of women. There were kids that were, forced to be adopted out of the country because their families weren't allowed to have more than one kid. Maggie McNeil was one of those kids. She was born in China. She was adopted by two Canadian parents. And I love it sort of penetrating the censorship over there too, because here you have a country that, is trying to build all these systems around like, we'll capture the most talented 10-year-olds and we'll put them in the training centers and we'll train them to death. And that's how we're going to get all this Olympic success. And there was the Olympic champion in the 100 butterfly, and they basically forced her out of the country through governmental policy. And she found a home in Canada and has obviously gone on to the highest success in life. So pretty crazy stuff.
It was awesome. I think it was one of the stories that I don't know if she wants it out there or or how much attention, because she's obviously built a wonderful life for herself and is very accomplished and hopefully very proud of herself for, everything that she's done. But wow, what a story that is, especially for all the reasons that you compare. We could go on, and talk about the Chinese swimmers too, but it is one of those side stories. When you told me that, I had not heard that news,
Yeah.
and I still haven't seen any articles that reference it at all. So I don't know what's wrong with
Hopefully
my
it's
bubble.
not fake.
But
No,
yeah,
it's not fake. I'm pretty sure. Last thing I want to mention, although it pains me, are the Russian male backstrokers. You know, you and I had a good laugh about Kolesnikov, because of course I commented that, you know, he looks like a guy who's hitting on your girlfriend or your wife when you're out like in a club, and, you know, you're kind of like, you're getting a little nervous about it. And then she starts laughing and you're like, why are you laughing? But he's so charming. And I've created this whole backstory for Kolesnikov. For all I know, he just wears the chain necklace, and like actually in life, he's like really super boring. And, you know, like everybody's like, oh man, this guy.
Well, the other quirky thing he does is he does that entry for backstroke where he just falls straight forward with his head like a penguin dive, like somebody just shot him and he just falls over. And those are the only things that we know about him, with the chain and that entry. Like, you're allowed to create stories, but yeah, they have become, I mean, and Evgeny Rylov they've kind of become the almost stereotypical bad guys in this, you know, American hero story of Ryan Murphy's. Right. Exactly. I mean, we have literally like a Captain America looking dude in Ryan Murphy who is defending American turf in our backstroke opinions. And these two Russian guys come in and get him. You know what I mean? It's like, it's straight out of Rocky.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm extra biased because I had a Russian swim coach for 3 months. It went so poorly that it only lasted 3 months when I was 16 years old. And he always used to look at me and go, Russian stroke technique, much better. And I was like, no, it's not. They're not, actually. That's completely false. But it's interesting that, to me, that these two guys, like, they're not like crazy. Like, you do look at Ryan Murphy and you go, like, that guy's like, looks like an amateur bodybuilder. And these two, like Kolesnikov, you're like, does he work out? Does he train? Like he does train, right? Like, he just doesn't have the same, like, you know, crazy muscular look, and yet he just gets in there and kicks ass.
No, if you put him up in a lineup and had to say which one of these, without seeing him swim or knowing anything about him, and said which one of these guys is on steroids, it probably wouldn't be.
Probably wouldn't be Kolesnikov,
from the naked eye. From the naked eye.
Right.
And I'm not saying that they are. I mean, that was part of the storyline, and I think
you kind of are. It's sort of like you throw. I throw out all sorts of doping accusations on this podcast, so.
And I mean, the Russians did kind of bring it upon themselves systematically. So,
right. The whole, I mean, we don't have time to get into the whole Russian Olympic Committee thing. Okay. So now I've gotten all my races out of my system. What do you got from the meet that you sort of felt flew under the radar?
I guess they didn't fly under the radar. I guess just the ones that I definitely wanted to touch on is, Hafnui winning that 400 freestyle was just one of those that didn't fly under the radar, but it happened at the beginning. So it was something we kind of forgot about. Just an 18-year-old who you've never heard of, who's dropped so much time from lane number 8. You're like, oh man, that guy's going to die. You always see at least one person in the distance races going out faster than you think that they should. And just watching him chug along, I liked his stroke. There was nothing wrong with it. But it was still so mechanical. You could tell he's just so raw in figuring it out, and was still able to hold good technique even as he was probably free. I was freaking out. So he had to at some point be like, am I winning the Olympic final right now? So that's what the Olympics is kind of all about, especially for a small country like Tunisia, and like having that happen. And I wanted to look for him in the 200 freestyle or the 800 freestyle, and I never even really checked up on him. But I thought that was just a really a race worth discussing. It definitely wasn't under the radar. Everybody's discussed it. It's been one of the most memorable races.
I don't know, but
I don't know what you thought.
I'll give it under the radar, and I'm very curious to see what develops from here. You know, I think the track record is so mixed on somebody from a small country who has one of these kind of breakout swims, and sometimes it's almost as if they're never heard from again, or they just like go on to this super long career. I mean, obviously the natural comparison is Us Maluli, because it's the same country. And Us kept swimming for so long that I didn't even realize he was still swimming until I read on SwimSwam that he was not going to the Olympics, and then he was going to the Olympics. So, I'd be really curious. It just makes me really, really curious to see how things play out with Hafnui going forward.
Yeah, it will be. It's a name to watch, one that we won't forget. He's not just that guy who got, third place that you didn't expect. He just won. Ahmed, I think is his first name. Ahmed Hafnui is a name that I'll remember. And it's because that is what the Olympics still offers, is that kind of stage and moment for somebody to surprise you like that.
Yep.
And then the only other race that I really just wanted to talk about, because I thought it was the best version in so many ways of the version that we all hopefully appreciate Katie Ledecky as, and that was in the 800 free relay on that anchor leg. And all four of those women deserve great credit. Sorry, Michael calls them girls now, so then I'm just trying to correct Michael when I heard him say that.
Yeah, sure.
So
I can still hear my mom, my dead mom, is like watching down on this podcast, and she's going, "Call them women, Christopher. Christopher, you don't call them girls." Okay, so go ahead.
Okay, women, these amazing women, all put together that race, and after a lot of people had focused on a second place finish for Katie, and then a fourth or fifth, I can't remember, just off the podium in the 200. For her to get that moment and, run down the Australian, and all the things that had to come together for that moment, like the Australian lineup and all of these different pieces that happened, to see them come and achieve that goal of beating the Australians, only to get second from the Chinese, but still be just so happy with, what they did. And I think that's what Katie Ledecky kind of showed to everybody, is like, don't feel sorry for me because I'm not winning everything. Like, I'm happy with my performances. I'm putting my best effort into it, and this is how it goes. Like, I'm aware of how this all works, even though I was unbeatable 5 years ago. Like, I'm still aware of how this works, which is so hard to be, and so hard not to be caught up in who she is. But that's what makes her who she is, and what makes her not get caught up in what everybody else is saying. And then at that moment, you could tell, I mean, she'd won the 1500, which looked like the relief. And then it was like, here's Katie Ledecky. And from the rest, it was only that race and then the 800, but it was like, watch out. Like, Katie Ledecky has found her, Katie Ledecky that can't be beat. And, this is going to be awesome in the 800, So I just thought that 800 free relay was another turning point, not to mention that all three of the medalist teams broke the world record, which is pretty rare in a non-suit race, a non-2008, 2009 suit era race. So it was just probably the best race of the games, in that event. So, I liked that one too.
Yeah, I mean, so it's such again, the every race that Ledecky participated in, I give it a 10 out of 10 for entertainment value. Like, you cannot tell me you weren't glued to your TV watching that 400 free. I thought I did every permutation in the lead up to the 800. I was like, oh no, Titmus is totally going to get this. No, Ledecky's got this. No, it's going to be the other way. And then I'm watching the race and I'm going, ooh, Titmus is too close. She's going to be able to come back on her. And no, she's not going to be able to come back on her. And even at the end of that 800 free, looking at Ledecky, you could tell she was in a world of hurt for most of that race. Like, I've never seen her at the end of something look like just like she was just in excruciating pain, like she just sort of gutted one over the finish line.
Because no one's ever done that schedule at the Olympics. Like, it is what she's just gone where no man or woman has ever gone before, I think, with that full lineup of I know for a fact no man could do it because they weren't able to do the 800 until this point, but just even a man who's been able to do the 1500 down to the 200 is unthinkable. Anyway,
Yeah.
keep going. That's why she looked exhausted.
Yeah, of course. I mean, insane program, and there were really, I think if it were 2016 and she was as dominant as she was, that she would have had more races where she could take her foot off the gas. She had no races in the entire meet where she could take her foot off the gas. She had to race hard every time she got in. And so in that context, in many ways, she swam better, I think, than 2016, even though she was less dominant. And I think you're right too, that maybe like our biggest takeaway from these games, and when there's a swimming podcast, so we're not going to talk about Biles too, even though everybody seems to want to give their Biles take at the moment. It's just like, it's not for these athletes. It's not necessarily, that's something we put on them. Like, you're the best, you're the greatest of all time, you win all the time. Like, of course they're trying, they're competitive, they want to win all the time, but maybe for them, it's not everything, right? And
hopefully for them, it's not everything, because the one who it's everything for is pretty depressed right now at the end of it, even if they got everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, you would hope, and I think that's important to see from these superstars, is that it's not necessarily everything. That's why what she did was even more valuable maybe than 2016, is because in her shortcomings that were not her shortcomings, but for some reason everybody else's expectations of her shortcomings, she's able to like teach some things to people older than her, to grown men older than her, to young boys and young girls, obviously, and to women everywhere. Like, she's such a great role model. And this is, let's go Rowdy again, but like, we don't appreciate her enough. Because her records are going to be there for a while, and we're going to talk about her as the greatest freestyler in history. But like, because she isn't that like demanding your attention superstar, she seems to be comfortable being Katie, and whatever that is enough, which seems to be plenty in every area. I mean, so it's just that comfort in who she is really cool to see. And I think sometimes, I'm sure her agent probably would like her to be more, marketable in some ways, but like, she's not willing to stretch outside herself. Like, that archery commercial is perfect, because I bet she really legitimately did archery.
That was one of the, like, in a world of commercials where you go like, not this one again. Every time the archery thing came on, I was like, oh, this is good. This is good. I like this.
Am I naive? But like, I believe Katie wouldn't do the commercial unless she really did archery, but maybe I'm naive. Maybe she just acted that whole time and fooled me. But that's at least, that is such a more marketable like belief for an advertiser, if you really like, it's niche. There's not everybody would recognize who Katie Ledecky is and how great that is, but I think we do. And I'd try really hard to appreciate, like you said, I was glued to all of her races, watching her, counting her strokes. She's taking more strokes and kicking less, but it seems to be working. So
for whatever reason,
it was
that
awesome.
For whatever reason, that one, and then the French skateboarder saying at the end of that commercial, you don't have to be amazing to start, but you have to start to be amazing. That one got me every time. I never got sick of it. I don't know what it was, but I was like, yeah, you're right. To be amazing, you got to start.
Yeah. Anyone that has anything to do with parents, like the Jessica Long one, every time, but like anything with any of the parents, like waking up and doing this stuff with them, I'm just like, damn it.
Well, don't watch my last podcast. Last week I had the Brian Tremmel, the director of Water Is My Sky. I'm just parent trigger warning. If you watch that and you do not cry at the end when Tom Wilkins' dad hugs him after he gets that Olympic medal, like, you do not have a heart in beating.
Or you just don't have kids yet. Yeah. Or
you just, because I'm just looking at the dad and I could just tell, like, it's just a lifetime of like driving his kid to the pool and telling him like, you can do this, Tom. And like, and it's just too much. It's just too much. All right. Thanks for coming and talking through all this with me. This is much better than the original version of this I was going to do all by myself. When I can't find a guest. keep up the great work with Swim Sam. It's been so nice to have you back doing interviews, man. Like, and they're just really, really good. And I feel lucky to have you as a friend, lucky that I can still get you to come on here and talk through some stuff with me. And yeah, good luck as you embark on this new chapter at Seattle U.
Thanks, bud. Same to you. Keep up the podcast. A lot of good stuff out here. So always a pleasure talking with you.